For 47 years, humanity abided by the Galactic Council's rules. We were courteous, restrained, contained. They called it polite mode. They thought it made us safe. But today, when they laughed as 312,000 of our people burned, we turned it off. And in real time, the galaxy watched what humans become, when there's nothing left to lose. Ambassador Voss, your seat is merely ceremonial. I suggest you remember that. HFY's tone slithered across the council floor, drenched in smugness. Lena Voss didn't blink. Then you won't mind if I speak symbolically, Counselor? A few of the delegates chuckled. The Threxeri were old, their arrogance older. But the laughter died when the feed was pulled onto the central spire. The raw footage played silently. The agricultural colony of New Silesia, green fields, children laughing near solar coils, quiet harmony. Then came the flash. Plasma strikes. Screams. Smoldering soil. A field medic dragging a body half her size. Then silence, punctuated only by emergency beacons blinking hopelessly against ash. 312,000 dead, Voss said. No military structures. No weapons. No warning. Counselor HFY leaned forward, his 6 eyes glinting. Your colonies expanded into our protected buffer zone. We responded. Swiftly. Decisively. You mean you wiped out a civilian population without provocation? You built where you were told not to build. Chairmind O'Quarim, a translucent crystalline intelligence, intervened with artificial calm. There appears to be a territorial discrepancy. Perhaps further mapping. It wasn't a discrepancy, Voss interrupted, still calm. We registered that settlement with your diplomatic arm 5 years ago. We have the treaty signatures. Your Dominion accepted the border terms. That may have been an administrative oversight, HFY said, grinning with too many teeth. A forgivable one, I'm sure. Voss exhaled once, slow and quiet. Fallon, the human security officer standing just behind her, didn't move. He hadn't said a word all day. He never needed to. HFY sneered. Let us not escalate over an unfortunate incident. We of the Threxeri suggest reconciliation. Perhaps a modest reparations fund. Your people can rebuild somewhere else. You expect us to accept a check, Voss replied. For 300,000 burned alive. Better that than a war you can't win. The chamber paused. That sentence did something. The kind of silence that smells like ozone before a storm. I see, Voss said, folding her hands. Then let me ask formally. Chairmind, under Section 7.1 of the Galactic Courtesy Accord, Earth requests permission to disable its behavioral compliance protocol in this chamber. A sharp intake of breath echoed from multiple delegates. The translation crystals flickered nervously. The request was unprecedented. Ambassador Voss, the chairmind said, pulsing uneasily. Are you fully aware of the ramifications of that action? Yes, Voss answered, voice unwavering. Effective immediately. HFY laughed. What is this? A tantrum? You humans really don't understand scale. We flattened one of your sandboxes. You want to throw your toys? Fallon finally moved. He stepped forward, opened a slim briefcase, and withdrew a small, shimmering device. He placed it on the table. It pulsed red. Authentication, Fallon, mark. Security override, polite mode disengaged. A faint hiss followed. Voss straightened in her seat, and for the first time, her expression changed. Not a smile. Not calm. Something else. You misunderstand, HFY, she said evenly. This wasn't a tantrum. This is a warning. I see no ships. You will, Fallon said. Then he turned to the pulsing device. Begin transmission. In the center of the chamber, the live neurofeed bloomed into existence. Earth's defense grid. Emergency mode alpha. Multiple orbital fleets activating. Power surges in classified facilities. AI combat signatures going live. Project Typhon online. A synthetic voice echoed from the feed. The delegates began murmuring. Impossible, RHSL barked. This is a bluff. Typhon was a myth, muttered the Krayland representative. No, Voss corrected. Typhon was asleep. We've spent decades with a leash around our throat, convincing ourselves we were safer obeying. You just reminded us why we stopped trusting empires. Threats in the council chamber violate. This isn't a threat, Fallon cut in. It's a forecast. The feed zoomed in on a fleet exiting Fold space near the Threxerai border. No warning. No diplomats. Just human warships with names like Nemesis and Grudge. You can still call them back, Chairmind O'Quarum offered, unnerved. We won't, Voss replied. You burn families alive. This is not negotiation. It's enforcement. RHSL rose. You'll start a war. No, Voss said coldly. You started one. We're simply the conclusion. Your Earth fleets won't last 5 hours against our numbers. Numbers didn't save the Dominion of Scar, Fallon said flatly. And they won't save you. The chamber flickered with a new data overlay. Threxerai military satellites, going offline. Comm relays hacked. Border defense systems, disabled. One by one. Silently. Voss stood, finally. You thought polite mode kept us civil. You were wrong. It kept you safe. And then she turned to leave. Ambassador! RHSL screamed. This will mean annihilation. Voss paused, not looking back. Then you finally understand how New Silesia felt. Fallon followed her out. Behind them, the galaxy reeled. And far away, Earth prepared to speak a language the stars hadn't heard in centuries, unfiltered, unchained, and unpolite. Human. No alarms sounded. No one screamed. That was the terrifying part. The moment polite mode disengaged, the change in Ambassador Voss was as subtle as it was catastrophic. She moved with purpose, eyes no longer soft but calculating. Every step she took toward the council center carried the weight of a forgotten predator remembering it still had claws. Counselor RHSL scoffed, his voice thick with disbelief. Do you think showing teeth makes you a threat? You're still apes in suits. Fallon stepped forward. You're going to want to sit down, Counselor. The device on the table expanded into a holographic feed. Dozens of red-coded alerts bloomed across the galactic tactical map. Earth's shadow fleet, long rumored, officially non-existent, had materialized in real time above Threxerai territory. RHSL's eyes twitched. This is fabricated. Chairmind O'Quarum, now analyzing the stream in triple parallel AI clusters, spoke with rare hesitation. This is authentic. 42 Earth-class stealth dreadnoughts have breached Threxerai perimeter space. 0 broadcast warnings. 0 diplomatic declarations. Why? Asked the Jalari emissary. Why no message? They're not sending one, Voss replied. They're delivering the answer. Fallon issued one command. Initiate Operation Curtain Fall. On screen, the first orbital Threxerai war station vanished. Not exploded, deleted. A silent, perfect erasure. One moment it existed, the next it was a glowing dust cloud. No Earth ship had even been visible on sensors. They're cloaked, Fallon said simply. But not just optically. Entirely phase-shifted. RHSL snarled. You've violated Council law, every war protocol. Do not speak of law, Voss snapped. Not after you torched a colony during peace talks. We played by your rules. And you still bled us. You're acting like this chamber holds no authority. It doesn't, she said. Not anymore. A second Threxerai station disintegrated. Then a third. The council erupted. Dozens of delegates shouted over one another, some condemning, others pleading for answers, a few asking how to join Earth's alliance immediately. RHSL's composure shattered. This is extermination. Voss looked him in the eye. This is restraint. You haven't seen extermination. Fallon uploaded encrypted access to the Council's central neural array. Files decrypted in real time. Massive dossiers began pouring into the chamber's shared stream: audio logs, surveillance recordings, strategic memos, proof of Threxeri war crimes not just against humans, but against 12 other species. Black site labor colonies, genetic extermination programs, unprovoked border raids masked as pirate encounters. All authorized. All signed by R.H. Saul's own crest. Council silence followed. The weight of it crushed the air. "You don't understand what you've done," R.H. Saul growled, but his voice lacked conviction now. "I do," Boss replied. "I gave you the chance to walk away. You chose to escalate. So we redefined the battlefield." From the stream, an Earth Fleet commander's voice filtered in, calm, professional. "Targeting confirmed. Awaiting final orders." Fallon glanced at Voss, who didn't blink. "Target only military assets," she said. "No civilians. No cities. No hospitals. We destroy capability. Not life." "You call this mercy?" R.H. Saul hissed. "Yes," Fallon said. "Because if we turned off everything, you'd be dust already." The council murmurs returned, softer now, more cautious. The smaller species watched Earth with new eyes. Some with fear. Others with awe. For decades, humanity had played the role of the adaptable junior member, patient, restrained, humble to a fault. Now, they realized they'd been standing beside a supernova in a glass cage. "Why wait this long?" asked the Myloran diplomat, voice trembling. "You had this power for years." Voss turned to him. "Because we hoped we'd never need to use it. We didn't join the Council to conquer. We joined to learn. To grow. But the Council doesn't respect cooperation. Only dominance. You're turning this into a human empire." "No," she said. "We're burning down the idea that empires can massacre with impunity." Fallon gestured to the live feed again. The Threxeri capital fleet was now offline. Not destroyed, disabled. Entire command vessels floated, powerless, systems jammed by code that Earth's AIs had written silently over the past year, watching, mapping, waiting. Voss didn't smile. "Do you know what we call this, R.H. Saul?" He didn't answer. "Disarmament," she said. "Polite mode was never about safety. It was about keeping our fangs hidden. But the moment you made us choose between image and survival, we stopped pretending." R.H. Saul slumped back, speechless for the first time in 2 decades. Chairmind O'Quarim broke the silence. "Earth has committed a breach of Council articles. But the Council also recognizes that the Threxeri Dominion falsified data, violated border accords, and engaged in unprovoked planetary bombardment." Several delegates nodded. "Then act," R.H. Saul barked, desperate. "Punish them." "No," said O'Quarim. "We will observe." "You cowards!" "No," Fallon said. "They've just learned to fear us more than you." The feed zoomed out. All Threxeri outer defenses were now neutralized. Yet not a single civilian target had been hit. Every weapon Earth used was precise, surgical, terrifyingly ethical. "Tell me," Voss said, her voice low and edged, "how many civilian colonies has the Dominion raised? 5? 10? How many screamed before your warships turned them to fire?" R.H. Saul said nothing. "We remember them all," she continued. "We catalogued them. While you laughed and lied, we prepared. We don't start wars. But we finish them." Fallon tapped his console once more. "Final update. All Threxeri fleets grounded. Weapons offline. AI firewalls breached. Command codes overwritten. Estimated recovery never." Voss turned to Chairmind O'Quarim. "We've proven our restraint. Now we demand justice. The Dominion's vote is suspended. Its territories placed under Council monitoring. And Earth assumes temporary security oversight along the border zones." "That's outrageous," R.H. Saul spat. "It's unanimous," O'Quarim replied. "No one objects." The chamber held its breath. Fallon placed the briefcase back on the floor and returned to silent watch. Voss nodded once. Her job wasn't done. It had only just begun. And across the stars, the galaxy learned a hard lesson. When humanity turns off politeness, there are no second chances. The strikes were silent. Efficient. Deliberate. Across the Threxeri frontier, war stations simply stopped functioning. No explosions. No debris fields. Just command silence. Fleet AIs went dark, starbases lost power, encrypted military comms fell open like broken locks. The broadcast feed in the council chamber mapped it all in real time, icons of power fading, blinking out, vanishing like they'd never existed. Our HSOL stood frozen, watching his dominion unravel by the second. It was not an invasion. It was a dismantling. And it was still unfolding. We have reports of crew evacuations. Life pods being jettisoned from the orbital defense rings. Aquarium stated, its synthetic voice flat. No casualties. No strikes on civilian targets. No known injuries. Yet all military nodes are compromised. Earth's offensive appears to be bloodless. Fallon didn't look away from the feed. That was the order. You dismantled an entire armada, murmured the Atari representative. Without firing a single traditional weapon? Voss answered. We don't need to kill to win. That's your system. Not ours. The council tried to understand, but their minds were trained on brute force. Victory was usually measured in scorched planets, glass cities, and the stench of ash. This was different. Earth had dropped a fist through the heart of a military superpower, without breaking the bones around it. The second feed began. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a room. One of Earth's interrogation centers, bare, sterile, and cold in its honesty. Inside sat High General Kartox, bound not with chains but with truth. The stream was translated instantly, distributed across every council neural uplink. He was talking. Not screaming. Talking. Giving names. Account numbers. Details. Coordinates. Orders from RH Sol himself. You can't be broadcasting this. RH Sol hissed. We can, said Fallon. And we are. You captured our generals? We collected them, Voss corrected. During the initial wave. We knew where they'd retreat. We knew what ships they'd hide in. And we knew your AI wouldn't detect ours until it was too late. But they're officers. They have rights. Voss didn't blink. So did the children on New Silesia. Counselors sat in silence, eyes glued to the feed as Kartox listed operations targeting civilian transports, smuggling rare minerals extracted through forced labor, and purging indigenous populations beneath the guise of pirate suppression. The room's temperature dropped. The words cut through every species' sense of superiority. You didn't just go after infrastructure, muttered a Chevalier observer. You went after their reputation. Fallon nodded. Fear fades. Scandal festers. One by one, the interrogated Threxeri officials were shown. Some defiant, others broken. But all of them talked. The broadcasts didn't show blood. They showed something worse, proof. Human systems had collated decades of secrets, collected it like ammunition, and timed the release like a surgical volley. You think this makes you righteous? RH Sol said, his voice lower now, thinner. You're just as manipulative. Just as cruel. We didn't kill your people, Voss said. We just introduced them to the truth. The truth you've buried for centuries. This is war. No, Fallon said. This is consequence. Across the chamber, the delegates shifted. For years, Earth had been a curiosity. An unpredictable, primitive newcomer with clever tools and sentimental speeches. Now, that sentiment had a knife behind it. And the knife was smiling. They're using narrative as a weapon, said the Sarek delegate in awe. I thought only we could do that. It's worse than that, whispered the Zalari representative. They're not trying to destroy the Threxeri Empire. They're trying to make it obsolete. O'Quiram ran a live poll of council public opinion. The figures surged, trust in Earth spiking, trust in the Threxeri collapsing. 10 species filed emergency appeals for mutual defense pacts with Earth. 3 withdrew treaties from the Threxeri within the hour. Voss stood again. You believed strength was in brutality. We showed you it lives in discipline. You built your reputation on fear. We shattered it with facts. You bombed a world. We erased your credibility. You left us no choice but to show you what we really are. R.H. Saul's claws tapped the floor, frantic and meaningless. You don't belong in this council. You're destabilizing everything. No, Fallon said. We're balancing it. The final stream flickered on. This time it was a live confession, not just military, but financial. Funds laundered through neutral planets. Resources stolen from council-subsidized projects. Every signature, every wire trail, every bribe. You destroyed us with data, R.H. Saul whispered. Correction, Voss said. You destroyed yourselves. We just gave the galaxy a front-row seat. R.H. Saul looked around. The council members he once bullied wouldn't meet his gaze. His alliances were fraying in real time. Species once too weak to speak now watched him like carrion birds. It wasn't the fleet losses that broke him. It was the silence. The absence of allies. The weight of exposure. You want to humiliate me? He snarled. It's not about you, Voss said. It's about the system you defended. The one you used to justify atrocity. We could still strike back. You won't, Fallon replied. Because next time, we won't be surgical. A beat passed. Then another. O'Quarum updated the central docket. Effective immediately, the Threxeri Dominion's seat on the council is suspended pending investigation. Earth will assume provisional control over the Silesian border. All military aggression by the Dominion is to cease. Any retaliation will be considered an act of war against the full council. R.H. Saul opened his mouth to protest, but no sound came out. Not even he believed he could stop what had started. Voss turned, her job finished for the moment. Next time you look at a human and assume they're weak because they're quiet, ask yourself one question. She paused at the exit. What if they're just waiting for you to talk first? She walked out. Fallon followed. Behind them, the ruins of an empire weren't burning. They were rotting, in public, in real time, without a single shot fired into flesh. Just data. Discipline. And an iron will wrapped in polite silence that had finally come off. They still didn't get it. Even after the broadcasts, the collapses, the silent dreadnoughts blotting out Threxeri's strongholds like gods with scalpel hands, they thought this was just retaliation. They assumed Earth had snapped, lost control, responded with chaos. They were wrong. It hadn't been chaos. It had been choreography. O'Quarum, ever the diplomat's machine, tilted toward Voss. This scale of response, was it prepared in the last week? No, Voss replied. It was prepared 4 years ago. A flicker of disbelief ran across the chamber. That meant they had been building, waiting, planning all this long before New Silesia burned. It wasn't revenge. It was inevitability. R.H. Saul found his voice again. Bitter. Forced. You're admitting to premeditated aggression? I'm admitting to pattern recognition, Voss said. We watched the Threxeri raise 12 colonies across 4 decades. We logged every diplomatic stall tactic. Every false apology. Every internal investigation that ended with nothing but another crater on someone else's world. We knew you'd come for us eventually. So we built the answer in advance. Fallon activated the final transmission key. It didn't stream footage. It executed code. The map in the center of the council's spire updated again, not with destruction, but with something worse, control. 42 embedded AI ghosts, seeded over years through commercial software, Threxeri comms protocols, civilian networks, even medical infrastructure. They weren't weapons. They were keys. And Earth had just turned them. Every Threxeri network lit up in red. Not disabled. Not jammed. Owned. Banking nodes rerouted. Private encryption collapsed. Every shadow budget was copied and logged. Earth now had the Dominion's entire digital nervous system at its fingertips. Voss continued. You didn't destroy New Silesia. You walked into it. We let you. The families were never there. They were evacuated months before the blast. What you hit was an artificial construct. A fake colony? R.H. Saul's voice cracked. We gave you the illusion of victory, Fallon said. Then we traced your strike craft back to their bases, their launch codes, their command relays. Every shot you fired opened another door for us. You baited us? Gasped the Jalarianva. Voss nodded. We built a coffin and asked them to jump in. They did. This is madness, R.H. Saul said, but there was no fire behind it now. Just wait. You murdered your own empire, Fallon said. We just gave the galaxy a better view. O'Quarum updated the docket again. Emergency sanctions on the Threxeri. A freeze on all Dominion-linked assets. Provisional access for Earth to Dominion archives. All unanimously passed. No objections. Not even from the factions that once backed R.H. Saul. No one wanted to stand beside a falling Titan. This changes the balance of the galaxy, said the Zalari Chancellor. No, Voss said. It corrects it. Counselor R.H. Saul slumped in his station. He was shaking. It was quiet, but unmistakable. For the first time in remembered history, a Threxeri counselor looked afraid. You could have crushed our cities, he whispered. We still could, Fallon said, eyes cold. But we didn't. Because we're not you. Why? R.H. Saul asked. Why hold back? Voss stared at him. Because power without purpose is just brutality. And we needed the galaxy to see the difference. You want to replace us? No, she said. We want the galaxy to understand that patience is not weakness. That principle is not passivity. And that when humans finally stop asking nicely, the conversation is already over. Councillor Del Nav, one of the minor factions, spoke up for the first time. And what happens now? Voss looked around the chamber. Now? The Council decides what kind of galaxy it wants to be. Because Earth is done pretending. We'll protect those who ask. We'll fight those who force us. And we'll never again wait for permission to defend our own. Another counselor asked. Are we at war with Earth? Voss tilted her head. Only if you want to be. The room fell silent. Not because of fear. Because of clarity. R.H. Saul stood unsteady. You set a trap for us, and we walked right in. You ran, Voss corrected. Because you believed we were incapable of this. That humans were polite because we lacked options. But we weren't polite because we were weak. We were polite because we were civil. You mistook that for submission. R.H. Saul stared at her. You've ruined us. No, Fallon said. You did that yourself. We just handed out the mirror. O'Quarum's processing lights dimmed slightly. The Threxeri Dominion is to be demilitarized. Enforcement will be overseen by a neutral body. Earth is to provide the initial oversight infrastructure. Per council vote, 46 in favor. 1 abstention. 0 opposed. The vote display glowed crimson and gold. Final. Binding. Councillor R.H. Saul. O'Quarum continued. You are ordered to return to Threxeri Prime to face your people. Further presence here is unauthorized. R.H. Saul laughed bitterly. There's nothing left to return to. Then you finally understand what we felt watching New Silesia burn, Voss said. The difference is, you were never innocent. Fallon closed the briefcase. The signals cut. The feeds ended. Silence returned to the council chamber. But something irreversible had happened. Earth wasn't a junior member anymore. It wasn't a curiosity. It was now the spine of every conversation, the shadow behind every decision. Not because it had conquered, but because it had outthought, outplanned, and outmaneuvered the old powers without shedding a drop of blood. As Voss turned to leave, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. Humanity had already made its point. And the galaxy would never forget the day the smile came off. RHSAL had nothing left to say. No more bluster, no more threats, no more smirking dismissal. He sat slumped in silence, surrounded by the ruins of his reputation, his empire, and the illusion that he'd ever had control. No one came to his defense. The ones who used to nod along were now very still, eyes fixed anywhere but on him. Voss hadn't raised her voice once. Chairmind O'Quarum broke the hush with clinical finality. The vote is concluded. The Dominion is to be placed under provisional supervision. Enforcement begins immediately. The Council recognizes Earth's authority to execute containment, stabilization, and demilitarization of Threxeri holdings within contested sectors. Ambassador Voss, your designation is hereby updated to full representative with voting privileges effective immediately. No objections were heard. The translation crystal flickered for a moment as new protocols were layered into place. Earth, once a background participant, had now become a centerpiece. The weight of it didn't shift Voss's posture. She hadn't sought power. She had sought equilibrium. What she'd found was responsibility. RHSAL finally stood. This chamber once feared us. Now it bows to manipulation. Not manipulation, Voss said, turning to face him one last time. Memory. Precision. Restraint. You've mistaken civility for servitude. You underestimated the cost of pushing people who don't broadcast their anger. You used us to send a message. He spat. No, Fallon said, stepping forward. We sent a message to everyone else. You were just the example. The feed screens remained dark. There was no more show to run. The truth had already done its damage. Across the stars, people were watching. And remembering. Voss stepped into the center of the chamber. To the rest of you, those who watched in silence, who let this council stagnate in bureaucracy and protectionism while entire populations vanished under banners of empire, this was a demonstration. Not of firepower, but of what happens when patience ends. Several councilors nodded. A few didn't meet her eyes. A handful watched with something dangerously close to admiration. One delegate stood. A member of the Illyri, a species known for fierce neutrality. We feared what you might become if provoked. Today we learned we were wrong, she said carefully. We feared what you might become if you ever stopped pretending you needed our approval. Voss gave a slight nod. Then learn from it. Earth doesn't seek dominion. We seek deterrence. There's a difference. What if someone tests that line again? Asked the Mylerin. Fallon's voice was steady. They won't get a second warning. The declaration didn't come with theatrics. Just certainty. And certainty was far more terrifying than threat. O'Quarum closed the docket for the day. The session is adjourned. Further deliberations will resume under emergency protocols. Delegates are dismissed. Council members filed out in quiet contemplation. No one rushed. No one lingered. RHSAL was escorted by 2 neutral security units, stripped of all rank insignia. No one made eye contact with him. His name would not appear in the final records. A redacted shame. As the chamber emptied, Voss remained for a moment, alone with Fallon and O'Quarum. You had this capacity the entire time, the chairmind said softly. Why hide it? We weren't hiding, Voss said. We were choosing who we wanted to be, Fallon added. But now we've seen what pretending gets us. You've disrupted everything. We've clarified everything, Voss corrected. Now the council has to decide whether it wants peace, or another example. O'Quarum's processing threads shimmered. I suspect most will choose peace. That would be wise, Fallon said. They turned to leave. As they walked through the arched corridor beyond the chamber, a junior staffer from a minor trade species approached, nervous, clutching a datapad. I just wanted to say, thank you, he said quietly. My people lost 2 colonies to the Threxeri 10 cycles ago. No one listened. You did. Voss nodded. Your voice matters. It always did. The council just needed a reminder. Fallon took the datapad from the staffer, checked it, then returned it with a nod. You'll want to stay out of Threxeri space for the next 12 days. Transitions are messy. The staffer blinked and whispered, Are you going to rule them now? No, Voss said. We're going to rebuild what they broke. Then walk away. Why not keep it? She stopped. Because that's what they would do. He watched them go. Not with fear. With something older. Something rarer. Hope. In her quarters, Voss finally allowed herself to exhale. Fallon stood by the viewport, watching the orbital path of the Shadow fleet aligning above the fractured Threxeri border. Each vessel held more than firepower. They held resolve. Quiet, unyielding, terrifying resolve. They'll be afraid of us now, he said. They should be, she replied. Not because we were angry. Because we were ready. He turned. Do you think they'll forget? No, Voss said. And that's the point. She sipped her tea still warm. For 47 years, we gave them polite smiles and second chances. Today, we showed them what we never wanted to be. And now? Now we remind them, she said, eyes fixed on the stars, that being polite was always a choice. And across the galaxy, they listened. Because no one forgot the day humanity stopped asking nicely. And no one would ever mistake silence for weakness again.